I am Paul, and this is my story. When Silas and I were in jail, the door shut behind us with a hard, final sound that seemed to press the air out of the room. The jailer pushed us forward, deeper into the inner cell where the light barely reached. The smell hit first: damp stone, sweat, and something stale that clung to the walls. He forced our feet into the stocks, stretching our legs apart until there was no comfortable position left. When he stepped away, the silence settled in, thick and close. My back burned where the rods had struck me. Each breath pulled against the pain. I tried to shift, but the wood held me in place. There was no relief, only pressure. I stared into the dimness, listening to the faint sounds of other prisoners. Chains moving, someone coughing, a low voice speaking, and then stopping. Inside, the questions came quietly but steadily. I knew why we were here. I knew what we had done. Yet the weight of the moment pressed against my certainty. Obedience had led us into this room, into these chains. I felt the tension between what I believed and what I was experiencing. My body told one story. My calling told another. I turned my head towards Silas. I could not see him clearly, but I could hear his breathing, slow, controlled. He was feeling it too. No one could sit in this place and not feel it. The pressure of confinement does something to the mind. It narrows your thoughts, pulls them inward, tries to convince you that this moment is all that exists. Time moved strangely. I could not measure it. The darkness did not change. The pain did not ease. I thought about the roads we had walked, the people we had spoken to, the freedom in those open spaces. Now everything was reduced to stone and iron. Then Silas spoke my name, quietly. Paul. I answered, though my voice felt heavy. Yes. He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. We are still here. At first the statement felt obvious. We were still there, still chained. But I understood what he meant. We were still present, still breathing, still able to choose what would come out of us in this place. I let that settle. The prison had taken our movement, but it had not taken our voice. The air felt different after that, not lighter, but clearer. I became aware of the silence in our cell, not just as absence, but as space. Space that could be filled. Silas began to hum. It was low and steady, almost hidden at first. The sound did not match the setting. It seemed fragile against the weight of the prison. But it did not stop. I listened, then joined him. My voice was rough, strained from pain and dryness, but it was still mine to use. The first words came slowly. I had to push through the discomfort to speak them. Each word felt like a decision. We sang, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. The act itself pushed back against the walls closing in around us. The songs carried memory, truths we had spoken before, now spoken again in a place that tested them. The other prisoners began to notice. I could hear the shift. Chains moved as men adjusted themselves. Voices quieted. The sounds of the prison changed, not disappearing but turning toward us. We continued. The pain did not leave my body, but it no longer defined the moment. Something else was rising alongside it, a steady awareness that even here we were not without purpose. Then the ground moved. At first it was a tremor beneath us, subtle but undeniable. It ran through the stone and into the stocks that held us. Then it grew stronger. The walls shook. Dust fell from above. The chains around us rattled sharply, no longer still. The force increased until the entire prison responded. I felt the wood around my feet loosen. The pressure released. I pulled my legs free, unsure for a moment if what I felt was real. Around us, doors opened. I could hear them, one after another, giving way under the shaking. The sound echoed through the prison. Then it stopped. The silence that followed was different from before. It was not heavy. It was open. I sat there, breathing, my body still tense from the sudden change. The chains that had held me were no longer tight. The door was no longer closed. Freedom stood in front of us. But I did not move. None of us did. The moment held us in place, suspended between what had just happened and what we would do next. The prison had not disappeared, but its control over us had been broken. I looked toward Silas. Even in the dim light, I could sense the same realization settling in him. What had happened was not just physical. Something deeper had shifted. The place that had felt like confinement had become a place of encounter. Not because the chains fell, but because of what had taken place before they did. I understood then that the jail had not been the end of the path. It had been part of it. The walls, the pain, the silence. They had all pressed us to a point of decision. And in that decision, something had opened that could not be closed again. I remained there for a moment longer, aware of my breathing, aware of the space around me, aware that what had been proven in that cell would stay with me long after we walked out of it. The scripture reference is Acts 16:22-26.